I don't know if you just saw the video that came out today out of Houston, Texas. Another woman was pulled over and stepped out of her car and argued with the cop and called 911 and then got taken down, put in jail for 2 days. I mean, this is now happening daily. So I'm very pleased to have our next guest join me. He is retired senior special agent with the Department of Defense, recently retired, I should clarify at that. Bobby Kimbrough Jr. Mr. Kimbrough, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
Well, look at your new book, Surviving the Stop. It couldn't be in a more important time for this to come out because the incidents that are happening, it seems like it's accelerating, not slowing down. What you've been in law enforcement. You're recently re-entering the civilian world, right? No longer a senior special agent. What are we doing? What's going on? Help me from the beginning. What do we need to change?
Well, I think we need to change this culture that we've created, this atmosphere that we have of defiance, this gap that's widening us as a society, as us against them, you against me. We've got to close that gap. We've got to start to have dialogue and understand some things in our communities and our society as it relates to law enforcement, as well as the citizens that make up that community.
So, when I was a kid, my dad taught me, now I'm light-skinned, Jewish. My dad taught me, keep your hands on the wheel, say yes, sir, and answer all the questions, and do not move quickly in any way, shape, or form, and stay seated in the seat. That's what my dad taught me when I was learning how to drive. And, I see this video out of Houston today. That's not what happened. That's not what happened in the Sandra Bland case. And then the other side is people are saying, yeah, but the cops are totally overreacting. Where do we begin when you get pulled over? I mean, was my dad right in that's what you're supposed to do? And what should be the expectations of the civilian?
Your father was right about that, because what's happening is that when an officer stops you at a traffic stop, there's an experience about to take place. Your behavior and the experience that take place will determine the outcome of that situation. Keep your hands where he or she can see them. Comply with what he or she is asking you. Because at the end of the day, the objective is to survive the stop. There are so many options that an officer has when he stops you, anything from a verbal conversation, a verbal warning, to a written warning, to a citation. But when you go down that road of noncompliance, there's no way it can end favorably for you, because that officer has a job to do. Now, I get it. Some people are going to say, well, this has happened and I did that. Well, what I'm going to tell you is this. The side of the road is not the place to hold court. If you feel that you've been done wrong or unjust or your rights have been violated, that's what we go to court for, Monday through Fridays. You need to take that and make that a formal complaint, not try to resolve it on the side of the road. That's not the place.
All right. So, look, I mean, part of the reason I point out that I'm lighter skinned and Jewish is you were the keynote speaker at the 18th annual, Black Achievers in Business. You're fluent in Spanish. You have not just the background, in law enforcement, but from a different perspective, right? I mean, from the African-American community as well. And you're saying that this is important, that how we behave when we're stopped, plays a major role. But what about the flip side argument that, look, like in the case in that I just saw this morning, the video from Houston, where the officer, as the woman's calling 911, grabs her, twists her arm, takes her down, cuffs her, throws her in jail for 2 days for resisting arrest. Isn't there some, responsibility on the part of the officer as well not to overreact?
That's true. I mean, as you said, I heard you say you're light-skinned. I'm not quite as light. I'm an African-American, so I get it. I've been stopped, and I felt like I was wrongfully stopped. I tell my boys all the time, comply with what the officer is saying, because what's happening is if you stop me as an officer, I'm going to comply with you. I'm not going to give you any reason to put your hands on me. I don't need to call 911. 911 is at my window. He doesn't know who you're calling. All he is trying to get you to comply with what he's saying. Now, what I will say is this. There is bias in all of us. And how we react to certain things or what we see is based on our exposure, our experiences, and how we interpret some things. And quite naturally, there are some officers that shouldn't be in law enforcement, just like there are some that shouldn't be in every profession that we have. And when we find those men and women, the U.S. attorneys that I have spoken with and prosecutors, is that we want to remove them from this system of law enforcement because they are the ones that give law enforcement a bad name.
Well, I've been actually quite vocal about the fact that we need independent prosecutors as part of the issue, because prosecutors have to have a good relationship with the local law enforcement community to prosecute day-to-day crimes. And with an independent prosecutor to investigate when there's an incident with a police officer, that won't affect that relationship. So that's just one part of it. But Mr. Kimbrough, let me, San Francisco PD is mired in scandals right now. Oakland PD went through 3 chiefs in 9 days recently. The Bay Area here is having some real specific and significant issues. How do you begin, repairing those relationships and for that matter, finish rooting out these bad apples in the departments? Where do we even begin that process?
We began with dialogue. One of the things that we're doing going across the country with police departments all over is we're having conversations about surviving the shield. Carrying a badge every day is more than just a notion. It's almost like walking into a smoke-filled room and coming out. You still have the remnants of the smoke on you. Carrying a badge every day, there's a stress of carrying that. There's something that comes with it. But as it relates to repairing relationships, we've got to sit down and have real dialogue. We've got to bring everybody to the table, the police department, the community, the clergy. Everybody has to be a part of this to fix this, because here's this thing. It's more than just a police problem, a white problem, a black problem. It's a systematic problem. We've got to come together and fix this. We the people for the people. We've got to have some real dialogue and be really transparent with one another. If we're trying to transform a group of people or even a profession, in order where you can transform something, there's transparency, and we've got to have that.
So I'm speaking right now with recently retired Senior Special Agent Bobby Kimbrough Jr. From the department. He was with the Department of Justice, 30 years law enforcement experience. I know you have experience with drug trafficking and gang violence. We still have a significant gang problem in this country. And I think that's been lost in the conversation recently about the police shootings and some of these other issues. And California in particular, the Bay Area in particular, significant gang problems. The majority of the shootings are not, legal citizens or police involved. It's gang violence. So when you are looking back at your time as a senior special agent and your experience with gang violence, how are we going to start breaking through that problem? I mean, it seems like a never-ending cycle.
We've got to take that all the way back to grade school, elementary, and we've got to start working with young men and young women. We've got to start educating them and giving them tools, some real life skill tools, because think about it, a gang is composed of people who otherwise feel powerless. They have no access to the system. They're undereducated. They can't get a job. So the only place they feel powerless is coming together and taking what we want or causing havoc in that community. We've got to go back and retool the way we do in our educational system, because we're undereducating a certain group of people. Therefore, they're powerless. Therefore, they're reduced to a certain type of profession. Therefore, everybody has a place in life they want to arrive, a person they want to become. But what happens is when they realize that I don't have the tools or I don't have the skill set or society feel like it has bypassed me, then you have this me against them. I have no access to the system. So we've got to go back and start in our elementary school with this.
I am looking for big things from you. I hope you know that. I'm really glad you came on the show today. Retired Senior Special Agent Bobby Kimbrough Jr. New book is Surviving the Stop. I'm going to tweet out his website as well, so you can see that. It's bobbykimbrough.com. Mr. Kimbrough, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you, sir, for having me. And God bless you, and continue to do the work that you do as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and be well. Really, really powerful. I mean, these are such important conversations. He has a unique perspective that we need to have, and I'm glad he took time to come on the show today. Studio number again, 415-808-0810. You can tweet me at Ethan Behrman. Coming up next, we're going to have a little movie review. Scott Mantz, mantzmovie.com. You know him from Access Hollywood. That's next. I'm Ethan Behrman, KGO 810.